was supposed to go to Detroit tomorrow morning for a meeting with Phillips. You'll have to take his place. I believe I mentioned that.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Miss Linnea has your reservations.
She has, huh?
Yes.
Fill up the ranks, just like that.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you what it means, Mr. Ramsey. It means I'm not quite as naive as you think I am. Or as blind. You kept harping about Andy Sloane's weakness. It wasn't his weakness that kept digging into you. It was his decency. Andy Sloane was your conscience. He was a constant nagging reminder that some things are wrong.
Keep going, friend.
You used him as a whipping boy to try to make him quit. You made him backtrack and knuckle under, and you finally beat him to death. You wanted him out, but you wouldn't fire him.
That's true.
Now, it may be a rotten thing to lick a man's boots, but it's a lot worse to be the man whose boots have to be licked.
I'm not a nice human being. What else?
You're not a human being, period. You're a freak. You're an organizational marvel with no compassion for human weakness. Well, you drive and fight and kick your people into peak efficiency if they can make it, or into a grave like Andy if they can't, because they lack the strength.
And the capacity. He was third in command. That's a lot of responsibility.
This is his business, too.
This is no one's business. It belongs only to the best. To those who can keep it growing, producing, keep it alive. It belongs to us today, yes. But in the future, it belongs to whoever can give it more. And as far as you're concerned...
Don't try to fire me. I still hold this floor, and I still have a few seconds left to officially...
What do you want from me? Apologies? Guys. A nice unsullied conscience. You walk out of here with a halo because you spoke your mind. And then what do? You go to work for some nickel and dime outfit run by nice people who won't challenge you, who won't beat your head in, who won't make your talent achieve a height you never dreamed of. A company where you're the best and there's no competition and nothing to fight for. Where everything is handed to you. Where nothing is important enough to fight for.
All right, now it's my turn. What do you want?
I want you to stay. I need help on my level, and you're the only one who's able to function there. All right, you don't like me. I'm not a nice person in your mind. But you learn more, grow more, and do more with me than anywhere else, because I'll run you ragged until you do. I don't want you to like me. Fight me. Take over if you can. And watch the business grow from your effort beyond even our dreams. Be your conscience for me if you want. Be anything you like. And if it's something I don't like, you'll know about it soon enough. But if you stay, you're going to have to fight for every idea and principle that's holy to you. I think you're strong enough to take it. And if not, I think you're strong enough to get out.
I think that's acceptable.
No reservations?
No. Make that one reservation. Andy Sloane had a dream. A pathetic little wish that someday he'd come in here and break your jaw. I reserve the right to keep that wish for him.
I'll have it written into the contract. With a little rider that gives me the same privilege.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, this is Luminousz Star. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is about the cluster B personality and jealousy. Topics of discussion. First topic, a few characteristics and behaviors of the cluster B personality. Next topic, seeking the silver lining in the interaction with the cluster B personality. Third topic, practicing emotional discipline while dealing with those who behave abusively. Characteristics of the cluster B personality: jealous, defiant, seductive, manipulative, chronically deceptive, or lying compulsively, unremorseful, secretive, bully, predatory nature, self-righteous, charismatic, antagonist, lack foresight. Pause. Okay, so this last one here, lack foresight. One of the things that a lot of cluster B personalities have in common, or narcissists, is that they lack foresight. In other words, they tend to not learn from their mistakes. First of all, they tend not to think that they make a lot of mistakes, if any at all. Okay, so they lack the foresight. They lack the foresight to learn from their mistakes or to see the error of any of their ways. So this is what I mean by lacking foresight. They tend to not see the bigger picture. They tend to not pay attention to the details when it comes to their own personalities, their own characteristics, their own emotions, their own thoughts, their own behaviors. When it comes to them, period, as far as like the cluster personality is concerned, they are perfect. They're not like the rest of us. Okay, so they tend to not learn from their mistakes or see the error of their ways or their behavior. They tend to not look at that at all. They tend to blame other people for the way they feel, their choices in life. Okay, behavior patterns of the cluster personality: devalue, character assassinate, mimic or ridicule the unresolved trauma of others, project, idealize, gaslight, chronically make excuses, triangle, linger, hover, and or haunt others of whom they have abused, abuse people, alcohol, and or drugs. The four emotions that narcissists and those who have a cluster personality are often able to express and feel are jealousy, anger, fear, and hatred. Okay, so pause, going right up here to some of the behavioral patterns. A lot of us who have been dealing with cluster personality and or narcissists in our personal lives, we know how much they like to first do the love bombing, okay, and then they start to discard and devalue. Also, they idealize. I'm going to jump right to the idealization. They do this as well. They tend to love bomb and idealize some people, and then they start to devalue and discard. They character assassinate. One of the things, well, actually there's a few, but one of the things that the cluster personality does when they character assassinate, what he or she is doing is actually trying to convince others around him or her that others have the unappealing characteristics and traits that they actually have. So the cluster personality likes to convince you or I and others that we have the unappealing, okay, keyword is unappealing, or undesirable, another keyword, characteristic or traits that they actually have, such as being a person who lies compulsively, or who is chronically deceptive, who makes a lot of excuses, who blames. You know, these are the things that the cluster personality does. These are their traits and characteristics, or some of their traits and characteristics. What they tend to do, pardon me, is to try to convince others who really don't have those personality traits or those characteristics. They really don't have them, but the cluster personality likes to convince others for sources of supply that they do have those unappealing characteristics. So and this is also going right into projecting. They project their undesirable characteristics onto others. So they may say to you that you lied to them. Pardon me. They may say to you that you lie to them all the time. This is the cluster personality. They may say to you, well, you always lie to me. For example, okay, they may say, well, you always lie to me and I can never count on you. You always say one thing and do another. See, these are some of the things that the cluster personality does, but they actually try to project their undesirable characteristics or traits onto others by telling others, trying to convince others that they do this when they really do not. So this is part of the projection, or they project onto others the actual things that are very undesirable about him or her. Mimic or ridicule the unresolved trauma of others. This is another thing that cluster B personalities do actually quite a bit, but a lot of us overlook this because sometimes it's very subtle. I'm going to go ahead and say most of the time it's quite subtle. They mimic or they ridicule the unresolved trauma of others. So if the cluster B personality knows that your childhood was very traumatic, in order to mimic or ridicule that, the cluster B personality may say things that your parents, if your parents abused you, and the cluster B personality knows of it because maybe you shared that information, what the cluster B personality will do for source supply or a strong sense of control is to mimic or ridicule that, because that's traumatic for you, yet it is unresolved. I hope that makes sense. So they will mimic or ridicule your traumatic experiences, your traumatic memories, which go unresolved. And if he or she knows something that happened to you that is quite traumatic, they will ridicule that or mimic it in order to gain source of supply and fuel and control in the unhealthy relationship. Okay, let's move. Oh yes, I want to go ahead and mention this down here at the bottom. The emotions that narcissists and cluster B personalities often are able to express with no problem, and they often feel these quite consistently, which is jealousy, anger, fear, and hatred. Okay, they usually feel these and they have no problem expressing them. So the cluster B personality, they also express these emotions in order to gain source supply, fuel, and a strong sense of control in the unhealthy relationship. Okay, first point. Dealing with those who have a personality disorder, such as narcissists, one can become frustrated, anxious, sad, angry, and just about ready to give up on the relationship with him or her. Many valuable lessons in life usually come in the guise of painful experiences, such as having an unhealthy relationship with those who behave abusively. The silver lining is that once one becomes aware of the purpose of each relationship he or she has, successfully thriving forward in healing is possible. Next point, it often helps to learn how to cope and deal constructively with those who have a cluster B personality if one is especially emotionally invested in a relationship with them. An individual's overall well-being is compromised when he or she chooses to invest in any type of relationship with a narcissist or those who have a cluster B personality. Emotional discipline comes into play when one has the ability to demonstrate resolve, personal responsibility for one's own state of mind and emotions, and the ability to think critically. The challenge to repeatedly choose to place the ego temporarily aside while not taking what others choose to do, feel, or say personally could prove to become a game changer, could prove to become a great tool to practice. But yeah, this can also become a game changer. Okay, next point. The narcissist is usually on the prowl for sources of supply consistently. The ability of the narcissist to know what makes their targeted prey tick can be frightening. However, he or she is usually also aware of the appealing characteristics of their targeted prey, which many are secretly jealous of. By practicing emotional discipline, one can have an excellent defense against many abusive tactics that he or she may utilize in order to gain a strong sense of control in the relationship. Controlling others is an illusion of which the narcissist will never be convinced. Do not waste your time trying to change him or her. Okay. Tools. Remember that we cannot control others. However, we can influence one another. Next tool. Practice emotional discipline and self-preservation so that others cannot easily manipulate you while you remain having a strong sense of control over your own mind, spirit, body, and life. Last tool. Become knowledgeable about personality disorders and your options for support on how to deal with people who may have particularly a cluster B personality. Pause. Okay, that first point, that first tool, remember that we cannot control others. However, we can influence one another. This is true, and this is something that the cluster B personality will never, ever, ever be convinced of. He or she thinks that they have power and control over everyone, okay, around him or her. So we can influence one another. However, when it comes to actually controlling others, that is an illusion. Because we all have that thing called choice. We have the free will to choose. Therefore, others really cannot control us unless we give them permission to. The narcissist and the cluster B personality, however, they are very delusional when it comes to this. They do not accept the fact that, or they don't even face the reality that they cannot control other people. They can influence one another, but the narcissist, that is not good enough to influence others. They want to control in order to gain source supply. Next tool, practice emotional discipline and self-preservation. See, there is nothing wrong with defending yourself. When the narcissist or the cluster B personality is really coming down on you, or you know they're mistreating you, there is nothing bad or wrong with practicing self-preservation. Therefore, you are defending yourself. You have that right. You have that choice. You have the free will to make that choice. There's nothing evil or wrong or bad about you for defending yourself against the narcissist or the cluster B personality. Practice emotional discipline. See, that goes right along with the self-preservation. Emotional discipline is having the ability to place your ego and your emotions aside when necessary. In other words, not being overly analytical, not being overly emotional about something, being able to think critically, being able to be constructive about how you choose to respond, not react, respond. Instead of being reactionary, you are responsive. That is emotional discipline. You're able to set your ego aside, okay, and at the same time utilize your ego when it is necessary and constructive to do so. Because see, the narcissist likes it when we don't know how to control ourselves, when we don't know how to practice emotional discipline, which is basically being able to set your ego aside. Emotional discipline, as I explained before, is also being able to balance critical thinking with what and how you're feeling. In other words, being very mindful of how you feel and what you feel, while at the same time you're able to step back, look at the big picture, and critically think about what's going on in the relationship. See, that's the narcissist's worst nightmare. That doesn't feed them at all. That actually gives them a sense of losing control. And this is usually to a narcissist, this is a threat to his or her false self-image. And this is also a threat that they may be losing source supply from you. So practice emotional discipline and self-preservation is a game changer. Become knowledgeable about personality disorders and your options for support. When one chooses to build a support base, one of the things that they learn is how to cope and deal with people who may be very difficult to deal with, such as a cluster B personality or a narcissist. This is what the support base actually is supposed to do for you. This is one of the things it's supposed to do for you, is to teach you some very valuable tools to help you effectively deal with those who may be difficult in your life, such as a cluster B personality. Okay. References and resources. Please check these out in the description box below at the end of the video. Please check these out. I want to go ahead and thank everyone for watching, and I certainly hope you're doing well wherever you are on the planet. However, I wish you the very best. I'm Luminousz Star. Till next time, take care of yourself.
Earth, our home, incubator of life, through our lines of life.